just want to ask you, Danielle, so spotlight's on you. If you can talk a little bit more about how Solar for Schools helps schools in their journey. I know a lot of schools right now are working on their climate action plans. They have all got to have that together sometime this year. So as part of climate action plans, where do we feature? Where does Solar for Schools feature?
Yeah,
in
thanks.
That?
I mean, I'm going to base this on the conversation I've just been having for the last hour and a half with an estates director at a trust in Reading. And what we help schools to do is to understand the minefield of solar. Many estates managers, business managers, CFOs, COOs want to do the right thing. They want to decarbonise. They also want to save money on energy bills. Let's face it, that's part of the reasoning for this. But they have a very limited knowledge of solar and the solar market, solar quotes, and we are advisors to schools on what to look out for, right? What are the pitfalls? What are the risks? And also what are the options? So what position are you in right now? Can you make contributions? Do you need a fully funded model? Do you want to own the system eventually? Okay, so we're here to advise schools and consult with schools and spend that time looking at each individual case, if you're part of a trust, each individual school, to understand where to go and what to do. Right. And there are so many misconceptions about solar, so many misconceptions about the financial modelling, about lease and PPA, and the difference between quotes, and being, of course, you have to get 3 quotes, right? And being able to compare them like for like is very challenging. So you have got to know what questions to ask, and we will help you to understand those questions.
Thank you, Danielle. And I want to bring our attention a little bit more to the education offering and the fact that Solar for Schools has this wonderful partnership with Green Schools Project. So can you talk a little bit more about what is the role that education has to play here? I mean, solar is a big part of the decarbonisation journey. It certainly makes a lot of sense for schools. But why is education important to this story?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start by kind of rewinding to kind of where Green Schools Project and Solar for Schools just kind of started working together. I think actually both organisations were formed at a similar time, around 2015. So long before the Department for Education realised that this was important and was encouraging schools to do this. And I met Robert, the founder of Solar for Schools, quite soon after we both started doing this, and it was just so clear that we had a shared mission, but approaching it in very different ways. With Solar for Schools through kind of installing solar panels on as many schools as possible. And for us, more kind of focusing on kind of education and empowering pupils and teachers. And like Danielle, I mentioned this before, but I was a teacher for 12 years before starting Green Schools Project, and worked in one particular school as sustainability coordinator. So that might be a role that some of you on this call have had. So I've been in your position and know how challenging it can be with kind of schools being such busy places with so many different priorities. But really, our view at Green Schools Project is that the main purpose of a school is to educate young people, obviously, and I feel like it's a moral obligation for us to prepare children and young people for a future where they will have to deal with the consequences of climate change. That's kind of very clear on a hot day like today, which is we're in our second heat wave of the year already. Helping children to understand, why is this happening? Why is this happening more now than it was 10, 20, 100 years ago? I think schools are at very different points in their journey on this. Some schools have been doing good quality climate education for a number of years, for a long time. I mean, I started doing this working on this in a school in about 2009, so a long time ago, and there were lots of other schools doing it then as well. But I feel like more and more schools are realizing that they need to do more of this. The Department for Education is now encouraging and pushing this, and so what I'll explain more in detail kind of a bit later on, but what we do through our Zero Carbon Schools programme is support schools to really give a 1 year group of pupils an in-depth, kind of immersive experience of climate education, but also supports teachers and staff to kind of feed the topic into all year groups and all subject areas, and that, you know, if schools have got solar panels on the roof, they can become a really kind of useful source of sort of resource to kind of build on that learning, which Solar for Schools do through their education program, and we can kind of build on through our program as well.
Fantastic. And you mentioned there, Henry, about how this program is also targeted towards staff, right? And I think that a lot of times when people are talking about climate education, energy education, we're focusing a lot on students, which is great, but it's also important to include staff in that journey. And do you want to maybe like give a little bit more context or examples as to how that's helped, how it's helped to include head teachers or eco leads or business managers in that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the main aspect of our program is the pupil sessions. So that we provide schools with a pre-made series of pupil sessions which have been developed and kind of by teachers, you know, by myself initially, but then we've had a team working on the sessions and developing them each year. You know, we understand what teachers need. We get really good feedback on our session resources. They obviously work best if they are kind of tweaked and tailored to individual circumstances, but pretty much they're ready to go for teachers to implement in their classrooms. But also, having been kind of in the sustainability lead position, I know it can be sometimes be a bit, you know, a lonely position, and you're kind of like banging the drum for sustainability and climate in your school, not necessarily with support from other teachers or some you know, senior leadership teams are thoroughly on board, others not so much. So actually in the Zero Carbon Schools program, we provide 2 teacher training sessions which are designed for all teachers in the school, or even all staff if we can get kind of support staff to come along, and teaching assistants to come along as well. And we get a really positive response from that. A lot of teachers will say, you know, this is the first time we've actually had a bit of time and space to start thinking about how we can weave issues around climate and sustainability into our teaching, and we can provide some, you know, helpful tips and pointers about kind of where that can feed into to really make the learning of the pupils more meaningful. You know, it doesn't have to just be teaching about climate change all the time. It can sometimes be something that, you know, you're going to do something in English, for example, like extended writing or creative writing, you know, having that, getting them to do that around the topic of climate or sustainability or solar or renewable energy or you know, something like that. You know, it actually gives them something meaningful to write about. So yeah, we really kind of work with the teachers in the school to help enhance that throughout the curriculum.
And one of the things that you were mentioning, Danielle, was about how it also helps solar, and one of the key factors also helps schools understand their energy consumption and their energy generation and the patterns around energy, right? Are there any resources that teachers can use, that students can use, or that you'd like to like platform or talk about now?
Yeah, absolutely. So Solar for Schools, I mean, it is I'm going to say unique in its education offering in the solar market. That there are lots of solar companies offering an education piece around their installation, but it's a one-time offer. It's a workshop. Maybe they even say their graphs that they give schools is the education. As it's a really fully comprehensive program, it consists of an education portal that has lots of resources in it, a dedicated education website, a student app, gamified app that's free for schools to download, a teacher tracker within the portal for teachers to track students on the app. And am I okay to share, Sanchi? Do we have time for me to just show the portal quickly?
Yes, yeah, why not?
So this is what all our schools get access to when they join Solar for Schools. This is the education portal. I have access to all of our schools, so I can see all of the data, but let's say you were with us, you would just be able to see your own school. You'd be able to invite teachers to this portal so that they can join in with these resources and using them. Once they're in, they can see the energy data. So this is updated on a daily basis, so you'll be able to see the data from yesterday, right? And you can use this in your lessons, and it's really powerful for not just staff and students to see this, but site managers, for business managers to see this. You can change the date that you're looking at. You can change the date range, the year. So this is 2025 for this school. If we look at 2024, this is an ideal, absolutely ideal in terms of solar generation, which is the yellow bar, compared to the school's consumption, and which is the blue bar, and then what it exports to the grid, which is in green, and then what the school imports from the grid in red. Okay, so across the, you can see this beautiful bell curve, right, which is showing us that during the summer months when the yield is highest, schools are exporting the most solar to the grid because they're not in using it. Okay, you can drill down into let's say, let's look at when they came back in September, right, and let's look at a day in September. Wow, look at this day, the 12th of September was really high for consumption at this school. Why was that? I wonder what was going on the 12th of September. You'd look at the time that consumption really started to spike. Obviously you can see the solar is covering a lot of their consumption needs. They're importing nothing from the grid on that day at their highest points of use, and that school's doing really well in terms of solar. But this is really powerful data. It can be downloaded and used in math lessons. Obviously, you've got these equivalencies down here that help students to kind of visualize this and understand it better. We come in and we teach students about, and this is on an annual basis, we'll come and do assemblies and workshops to help students to understand what is a kilowatt hour. Again, really powerful for staff as well, because as most of you will know, when you look at your energy bills, you're like, what on earth is going on? They're hard to decipher. Once you know what a kilowatt hour is, you can start to really take control of your own energy usage. And we found across the board, the trend is that when solar is installed and people have access to this data, consumption goes down. So this is about behaviour change, right? Behaviour change across your school, across your trusts. I hope that's covered that question, Sanchi. Have I?
I think it has, but I think it would also be a good idea now to bring in the participants and see if they have any questions. So if you could use the raise hand feature or the chat, and if you have any questions around what Danielle and Henry have covered, if you've got any questions around the education portal, got people who are very much keen to learn about their energy consumption or have an idea of what was going on for that school on 12th of September, raise your hand. So yeah, open to the participants now for their questions.
I think just while we're waiting for questions to come, maybe I'll just show a little bit more of education and just pick up on Henry's point about so the relationship between Green Schools Project and Solar for Schools is really great for schools. So schools that are with both organisations and have both programmes running are really feeling the full benefits of a holistic sustainability education programme, right, that covers all bases. And with the solar integrated into that means that they are able to connect curriculum to campus for their pupils. So just show you kind of what that looks like in terms of some of the materials that we've created for schools. This is the dedicated education website that schools can access anytime. Really encourage you to go and look at our impact page and watch a few of the videos of schools that are with us, that are all on very different sustainability journeys, but have all integrated solar into their curriculum, and that, you know, they're really beautiful to watch. And there's so much here in the way of ready to go resources for teachers in our education library, so much that can be downloaded for free. So if you just wanted to have a little flavour of what we do and start using some stuff, you don't have to have solar to do this. You can just get using it. We've got a relationship with Busy Things as well, where you can get some free resources. And while we're waiting for some questions, I'll give Henry the floor a little bit.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just to build on that and to give a kind of a clearer picture of what zero carbon schools involves, and I think, yeah, as Danielle said, that those resources that she's just shown you, like we can kind of support schools to kind of help them to see where they could fit within kind of different year groups and different in different subject areas. Our zero carbon schools program with primary schools, we recommend that it runs kind of within curriculum time if at all possible. I know that's a big ask for some schools, kind of finding in curriculum time there's a big intake of breath, but if you absolutely can't find space, we can run the program with an eco team, but the schools that benefit the most are schools that can find some time within year 4 or year 5. Sometimes with year 6, they can do a bit kind of at the start of the year and then come back to it in more depth after SATs. But really, but they get kind of an immersive experience where they explore what climate change is, the causes, the impacts, and what the solutions for the climate crisis. They investigate their school's carbon footprint. So we encourage, we have sessions on energy, food, travel, and purchasing. So obviously in energy, there's the solar panels. If the school has solar, then that's kind of really brings that session to life. But we do look at other aspects of the school's carbon footprint as well. Food, travel, and purchasing. While that's going on, we collect some data from the school, and we create an estimate of the school's carbon footprint. And we were the first organisation to kind of develop a school-specific carbon footprint calculator. There is one kind of freely accessible now through Eco Schools, the Count Your Carbon, and we can work with schools who have done that, who have used that template. But ours is really kind of embedded into the programme. And just available for those schools who run the program, and it's a really kind of nice simple process for schools to go through, because we don't want you spending, we know that you don't have loads of time on your hands to kind of find out all the in-depth data that some companies or organizations might, but what's unique about our program is that then that's what the pupils then do, is building on kind of actual real life data. There's a sort of a math session where pupils can carry out some of the calculations, and then the most important stage of the program is ACT, where pupils can kind of use what they found out in the investigate stage to focus their projects on one or more of those areas. And lead and develop projects which aim to reduce the school's carbon footprint. So, you know, they might find out that actually they're doing really well on energy, particularly if they're part of Solar for Schools and they've got that. So then they can cover one of the other ones, like food, or for example, or travel, by encouraging people walking to cycling to school, or improving the vegetarian options and the school menu, or like all kinds of different projects that pupils can do. And then there's a few sessions at the end where we support them to sort of share everything that they've learned with the whole school, potentially kind of reach out beyond their school, and we have some support to involve the school community as well. You know, we really, you know, in the future we vision schools to be these sort of community learning hubs for the transition to a low carbon society and zero carbon society. Some schools are doing kind of bits and pieces of outreach on this already, but you know, a nice easy way in that we're doing with a lot of schools is kind of supporting them to have like a stand at the summer fair, and pupils can go around talking about their projects and what they're doing. So it's a really great way for the pupils to kind of share what they've done with parents and have an impact kind of beyond their school.
Thank you, Henry. And we've got a few questions now, so that's great. I'll take Nigel's question first. He asked, we're a community city group in Birmingham with 14 schools in our area, primary and secondary. What can we do to help you access and help schools? And Daniel, maybe you're best placed to answer this, not least because you're close to Birmingham, but also potentially you can talk about the panelizer and the feasibility studies we do for schools.
Yeah, I also know Nigel very well. Hi, Nigel. Nigel and I have talked about this a little bit before, but yeah, it's about building a relationship with school. How we work with schools is all based on a positive relationship, right? And building that trust with the schools. And that often comes by introducing those schools to other schools that we've worked with close by. So that's what I would say first of all is get to know the right person in the school who is working on sustainability, and suggest working with us and get them to speak to a school that has worked with us. And there are plenty in Birmingham that I can suggest to you, Nigel. And then secondly, I think it's about helping that school to understand that we can do feasibility studies at no cost, because some schools are getting charged just to see if they can do solar, and they really shouldn't be paying for that. We will do free desktop feasibility. So for that, we need the data from the schools, but a school isn't going to share their data with us until we have a relationship with them. So, it's about making that introduction for us with the right person in the school who's going to be the solar champion, who's interested in sustainability, wants to take things forward, and taking it from there. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Danielle. We've got a few comments and questions in the chat as well. So I'll start off with Elizabeth's comment, because I know she's here representing one of the schools that is already leveraging the partnership that we have between Solar for Schools and Green Schools Project. And I don't know, Elizabeth, if you'd like to vocalize your comment, or alternatively, I can read it out as well. But she mentions that the school Heron Hall Academy have benefited by having a carbon footprint poster created, which in turn has helped them identify where they need to improve. I don't know if you wanted to add something to that, Elizabeth, or
yes. Can you hear me? I'm just trying to activate my camera and my mic. Okay, here we are. Okay, right. Okay, so I started off by writing a comment about our carbon footprint poster, because for me, that was the most beneficial thing. I could clearly see what we were doing right and what we were, how we were saving energy in that area. I'm quite happy to share my carbon footprint, but I don't think I can, poster. And then we saw areas where we needed to develop quite a lot, and most of that was in the food. So we tend to eat a lot of meat in the school. The students have elected to have a lot of meat in their meals, but we identified that having beef was the highest carbon consumer. So we've put that towards the governors now, and we're waiting to hear from them if we can change the menu. But it's been a great clarifier on what we were doing well and what we need to improve. And just while I'm on here, I just want to talk about our work with Henry Greenwood and Green Schools Project. We started last year with Henry, and he came into the school. He delivered a program together with his team to 240 students in year 7. And that was fantastic, because they had very little education about climate change, about sustainability, about renewable sources of energy. And so that was a great introduction, and looking at how climate change is affecting certain areas in the world, like islands that are struggling from sea level rise and are losing their land as a result of that. Excuse me. So it's a great eye-opener for the students as well. And then from that group of 240, we chose 30 students that were interested excuse me, in taking this forward as part of the Eco Committee. And that was really the start of our journey with Green Schools Project. And this year we carried on with zero carbon schools, and we've continued to educate them. And we just started having our own little activities as well, just coming off some of the introductions that we were given by Green Schools project, and the kids went out into the playground asking other students, do you want a chocolate? Let me ask you 5 questions about climate change. And there was this competitive edge and how they all wanted to find out a little bit more about it, just to get that chocolate. So it was really good fun, and they learned a lot. And as a result of it, we've now expanded our eco committee. Sorry, we lost a few, but this year we've got 22 students from both year 7 and year 8, and we're still benefiting from having workshops where Bethany Jamal has come in to give us a workshop as well this year, and it's been really, really useful. Of course, I am a geography teacher, so we talk quite a lot about renewable energy, sustainability, solar and all that. We do tend to bring up how looking at the graphs, we can tell how much energy we use, same as Danielle showed us, and we can then think about how we can save energy. And when the students are involved in understanding the process, they tend to be quite excited about going about asking teachers to switch off their equipment, for example, and having switch off days, and maybe asking the teachers to shut down for the holidays, that kind of thing. So they become much more involved once they understand what they can do towards it. Because I think it can be a little bit overwhelming for them, climate change. I really don't know how I can help with that. It's too big for me. But now that we've had the workshops and they start to understand what they can do, take little steps every day, even maybe switch off equipment at home, they really feel much more like they can do something about it.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was a really wonderful anecdote, and I think it really brings home the point that both Henry and Danielle were making about the importance of education being in that behavioral change, right? And I think your school and your pupils are a fantastic example of that.
Can I just actually, just to sort of emphasize that point, actually, because it made me realize I kind of talk very much about kind of primary schools when I was introducing it before, but we do have a kind of a program specifically for secondary schools, which has a bit more freedom in it. It's not kind of designed as curriculum resources, but it still follows those 4 stages, but it's more designed for an eco team, which is what Elizabeth has been doing with Heron Hall. And it was so nice to come in last year. I think Elizabeth had found it difficult to kind of like get enough pupils engaged with it, but just by kind of coming in and doing an assembly and a couple of workshops, and it's great to see kind of how much that project that has picked up and taken off at the school now. So it's really nice to hear from Elizabeth with that update.
We've just got a couple of more questions coming in. Sorry, Danielle, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, well, 2 things. I wanted to respond to Simon Daniel, also no Simon. Hi, Simon from Derbyshire. Simon, and build on Henry's point about secondary. So our materials, our education programme complements what Henry does from Key Stage 1 right up to Key Stage 5. But hot off the press, we have just launched a piece of work that we're all incredibly proud of, and I'll just give you a little flavour of it. It's called our Solar Ambassador Workbook, and it was developed. Can we all see that?
Yes.
Can you see that, Sanji? It was developed by our wonderful intern Alison Ashworth, who came to us from Lancaster University for 10 months. And really has been a labour of love. She has poured her heart and soul into making this workbook for Key Stage 3 students to work independently through our Solar Ambassador programme. So focusing on A, B, C, D, assemblies, behaviour change, communicating facts and data analysis, and gives them so many different ways that they can explore solar and energy and renewables through those 4 avenues, doing various different challenges to win points to then be a bona fide solar ambassador and receive their certificate at the end. So just a note to Elizabeth that this has launched, and this would be great for some of your pupils who are already engaged with your eco work, and to anybody else out there. If you join Solar for Schools, you get this workbook digitally for free. We can send you printed copies as well for a nominal amount, but you can also buy into this workbook as well if you don't have solar yet, and it's something that students can do even without solar. Okay. Oh, and I said I was going to respond to Simon's question.
Yes,
didn't
to
I?
the about climate action plans, if you could include
Yes.
that as well, Danielle.
So we're just this is a really great point to sort of introduce Wendy Litherland, who is our head of education at Solar for Schools. And Wendy, has been doing sustainability in schools, also a secondary teacher, science lead, assistant head, associate assistant head still at St Christopher's in Accrington, and has been the champion of sustainability at her school for 15 plus years, Wendy, 19 years potentially, and has developed over the years a really extensive knowledge of actually how to get schools moving on climate, on sustainability, right? Actually how to get things to happen. She's instigated many a project, but wants now schools to understand that they can't rely on this one person who has this passion and drive, and is the lone wolf, and is going to run themselves into the ground. So we've developed, with Wendy's help, support for schools to create climate action plans, and this can be seen on our website, and you can book CPD with us around that. We also, in terms of templates, Simon, we recommend Transform Our World. Wendy, I don't know if you want, we probably don't have time, to be honest, but
we do have another question, but yeah. I don't know if you're here, Wendy. You have 1 minute to add to what Danielle has said. That's not too much pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have some really useful card sorts that are really helpful based on Transform Our World's climate action plan, which is a good starting point for schools who either want to move it from being one piece of paper that one person's written to a collaborative process, or vice versa, start in the collaboration zone. As you'll know, there's lots of people out there who will come in and offer this for free. I know Henry can add extra bits to this as well. But yes, we can arrange this in different formats, including CPD if needed.
Thank you, Wendy. And then
can I just one thing to add to that? Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's becoming an increasing focus with this sort of 2025 date that the Department for Education have stated, and let's go. I mean, it's nice to see how we're all kind of working together. I noticed on that last screen, Let's Go Zero mentioned as well, and we have our own climate action plan template which we've shared with schools, but actually from next year we're going to be using the Let's Go Zero sort of approved climate action plan template that they're using with their schools, because they've developed that in conjunction with the Department for Education, and Let's Go Zero are going to be doing a specific webinar for schools on our programme about how to develop a climate action plan. We have our thoughts and ideas, but they've kind of been on doing that with lots of schools up and down the country for the past year or so. So yeah, we're working with them alongside them as well, so it all fits together really nicely.
Thank you. And then I'll just take Nicola's question. We only have 5 more minutes left, so if anyone else has a question, feel free to put it in the chat now. Nicola's question is about whether we can put solar panels or any other solutions in alternative structures if the roof is not viable or structurally able to have solar panels.
The answer in short is yes, but it costs more, obviously. Okay, so we have built and installed on top of a carport before. It cost just a sort of very rough figure, probably around about £1,000 per kilowatt peak extra, and it's so we have to factor that in. It's possible, but it is more costly, and we're increasingly looking at how we can offset that cost with grants. Depending on where you are in the country, you might be eligible for certain grants that can help towards that kind of project. So my advice would be get in touch with us, fill out the contact form, we'll get in touch with you, we'll do some assessments, and we'll see if we can help.
If you are a school that is interested in solar, you can get in touch with us to book your free feasibility study. We can look at the potential of solar for your school, and we can take that relationship forward. if you are interested in Green Schools Project or just simply want to learn more, I will be sending a whole list of resources that Henry has developed about Green Schools Project, their impact. There's a video as well. I know that Henry would like to share, and we will be sharing that with everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for joining, and thank you for attending and for making time in your very busy schedules for this webinar.